The mail pouch hit the floorboards of the Iron Creek trading post with a thud that turned every head in the room. Nora Prescott stood in the doorway, snow dusting her coat shoulders, her breath still coming hard from the ride. She had 3 minutes before someone checked the contents. 3 minutes before they found the stolen land survey hidden between the Christmas catalogs and pension letters. The room smelled like tobacco, wet wool, and the kind of trouble that got people killed on the frontier. She moved fast, crossing to the counter where Jock Garrett sorted invoices with ink-stained fingers. Keep your face calm. Keep your hands steady. The survey wasn't hers to carry, but when a dying prospector pressed it into her palm 2 towns back and whispered that powerful men would kill for it, she hadn't been able to say no. Now she was a mail carrier with a death warrant folded in her bag. A man stepped away from the stove, tall, lean, with a short beard and eyes that tracked her like a hawk watching prey. Ranch hand, by the look of his work-worn clothes and the dust on his boots. He moved with the careful balance of someone used to being ready for violence. Hollis Keene. She knew the name from delivery logs. Juniper Ranch. He picked up supplies every other week and never wasted words. He picked up her mail pouch before she could stop him. Her heart kicked hard. The survey, the stolen papers that proved the territorial governor had been selling land grants to railroads before settlers even knew the parcels existed. Papers that would end careers, break fortunes, and get anyone holding them hanged for theft or worse. Hollis set the pouch on the counter and met her eyes. Something flickered in his face. Recognition, maybe. Or suspicion. Old Garrett reached for the pouch. Nora's hand shot out, landing on the worn leather just as Hollis moved to intercept. Their fingers collided. His hand was warm, calloused, and he didn't pull back. Time stretched. The stove popped. Someone coughed. Hollis leaned in, voice low enough that only she could hear. You're carrying something that doesn't belong to you. Her throat went dry. How did he know? She forced her voice steady. Everything in this pouch belongs to someone. That's how mail works. His mouth tightened. Not what I meant. Garrett cleared his throat. You two gonna let me sort this? Or are you planning to stand there holding hands all afternoon? Heat flooded her face. She yanked her hand back. Hollis stepped aside, but his gaze stayed locked on her like he was memorizing her face for a wanted poster. She watched Garrett's gnarled hands pull letters from the pouch. Please don't check the bottom. Please. A shout erupted from the street. Boots hammered the boardwalk. The trading post door slammed open, and Sheriff Dutton filled the frame, snow swirling behind him, a rolled paper clutched in his fist. Hollis Keene, you're under arrest for the murder of Samuel Cord. The room went silent. Nora's stomach dropped. Murder? Hollis went very still. His hands stayed loose at his sides, but she saw the shift in his posture. The coiling tension of a man deciding whether to run or fight. The sheriff stepped inside, hand on his pistol. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Hollis didn't move. I didn't kill anyone. Got a witness says otherwise. Says you were seen leaving Cord's claim 3 nights back. And Cord turned up dead yesterday morning, with his throat cut. Nora's breath caught. She'd heard about Samuel Cord, a prospector who'd struck a modest silver vein and then started asking questions about land titles. Questions that made territorial officials nervous. Questions about surveys. Her mind raced. If Hollis was being framed for Cord's murder, it wasn't random. Someone wanted him silenced. Someone who knew he was close to the same truth she was carrying. Hollis met the sheriff's eyes. I was at Juniper Ranch 3 nights ago. Whole bunkhouse can confirm it. Dutton's expression didn't change. Then you won't mind coming to the jail while we sort it out. That's not sorting. That's hanging. The sheriff's hand tightened on his pistol grip. You resisting arrest? The air turned sharp. Nora saw it play out in her head. Hollis would fight. The sheriff would shoot. And whatever Hollis knew about the stolen surveys would die with him. She stepped forward before she could think it through. He was with me. Every eye in the room swung to her. The sheriff's gaze narrowed. Excuse me? 3 nights ago. He was with me. We were, she swallowed, her mind scrambling, riding out to check a washed-out bridge on the mail route. He helped me clear debris so I could get through the next morning. Hollis stared at her like she'd lost her mind. The sheriff looked between them, skepticism written across his weathered face. That's so. Nora forced herself to hold his gaze. Yes. We were together until nearly midnight. He couldn't have been at Cord's claim. Why didn't you mention this earlier, Keen? Because, Nora cut in, her heart hammering, we were trying to be discreet. A mail carrier and a ranch hand meeting in the dark looks improper. But I'm not letting an innocent man hang to protect my reputation. The lie tasted like ashes, but she sold it with everything she had. The sheriff's jaw worked. You willing to swear that in front of a judge? Yes. Hollis found his voice, rough and low. You don't have to do this. She met his eyes, trying to communicate urgency without words. Yes, I do. The sheriff exhaled through his nose. All right. You both come down to the courthouse tomorrow morning. Judge Farrow will want statements. But Keen, you don't leave town. Understood? Hollis nodded slowly, his gaze still locked on Nora. Dutton turned and walked out, the door slamming behind him. The cold draft made the lanterns flicker. Old Garrett cleared his throat and went back to sorting mail like nothing had happened. The other men drifted toward the door, already spreading the story. Hollis grabbed Nora's elbow, his grip firm but not rough, and steered her toward the back corner of the store. His voice dropped to a fierce whisper. What the hell was that? She yanked her arm free, pulse racing. You were about to get arrested for a murder you didn't commit. You don't know that. She met his eyes. Did you kill Samuel Cord? No. Then I know. His jaw tightened. You just lied to a sheriff and promised to lie to a judge. You know what they do to people who obstruct justice out here? Same thing they do to people who carry stolen surveys. Hang them. His eyes widened a fraction. So you do know. Her stomach twisted. I don't know anything. Except that someone killed a man who was asking questions about land fraud, and now they're trying to pin it on you. Which means you were asking the same questions. He studied her face, and she saw the exact moment he decided to trust her. Or at least to gamble on her. His voice softened, just barely. Who gave you the survey? A prospector. Dying. 2 towns west. He said, powerful men would kill for it. They already have. Cord found proof that the territorial governor's been selling land grants under false pretenses. He was going to expose the whole scheme. I was trying to help him get the evidence to a federal judge in Denver. And now he's dead, and you're the scapegoat. And now you're an accomplice. She shook her head. I'm a witness. Different thing. Not to a crooked sheriff, working for a crooked governor. Her blood went cold. Dutton's on the take? Everyone's on the take. That's how it works. You don't survive in territorial politics by being honest. Outside, voices rose. Someone shouted about the arrest. Nora heard her name mixed in with Hollis's, and the tone wasn't kind. Hollis glanced toward the front windows. We need to move. If Dutton's smart, he'll come back with more questions before we get our story straight. She grabbed her mail pouch, the weight of the hidden survey suddenly burning through the leather. Where? Juniper Ranch. It's defensible, and the foreman owes me. That's the first place they'll look. Not if we're expected to be together. You just told the whole town we've been meeting in secret. We might as well make it believable. Her heart kicked. You want me to come to the ranch? I want you to stay alive. Same as me. Right now, that means sticking together and making sure our story doesn't fall apart. She hesitated. Every instinct screamed that trusting a stranger was how you got killed on the frontier. But he was right. She'd tied her fate to his the moment she opened her mouth. And if she was honest, there was something about the way he looked at her. Not like she was fragile, like she was capable. Dangerous, even. It made her want to prove him right. All right. But we do this smart. We go to the courthouse tomorrow. We give our statements. And we figure out who really killed Cord before they find another reason to arrest us. Hollis's mouth curved, just barely. You always this stubborn? Only when someone's trying to hang me for helping. He pulled his coat tighter. Then let's go before the whole town decides to help Dutton speed things along. They slipped out the back door into the alley. Snow fell in thick, lazy flakes, muffling sound. The air bit cold and clean, and Nora's breath plumed white. Hollis led her toward the livery stable, moving fast, but not running. Running drew eyes. She matched his pace, her mind racing through everything that had just happened. She'd walked into Iron Creek planning to drop the mail, ask a few careful questions, and figure out who she could trust with the survey. Now she was on the run with a man accused of murder, lying to the law, and betting her life that he was telling the truth. The stable smelled like hay and horse sweat. Hollis saddled 2 mounts with practiced speed, his hands sure and efficient. He didn't ask if she could ride. He just handed her the reins of a sturdy sorrel mare and swung onto a tall roan gelding. They rode out the back gate, into the open prairie. The land rolled away in white waves, broken by dark stands of juniper and pine. The sky hung low and gray, promising more snow. Nora pulled her coat tighter and urged the mare faster. Hollis rode beside her, his profile sharp against the pale horizon. He didn't speak, just kept them moving at a steady pace that 8 miles without exhausting the horses. After an hour, the ranch came into view. Low buildings clustered near a frozen creek, smoke rising from chimneys, corrals holding a few winter-thin horses. It looked hardscrabble, but honest. A man stepped out of the main house as they approached. Older, grizzled, with a face like weathered leather. He took one look at Hollis, and his expression darkened. Heard you got yourself in trouble. Hollis dismounted. Wasn't me. But someone wants it to look that way. The foreman's gaze shifted to Nora. And her? She's with me. Long story. Can we come inside? The foreman hesitated, then jerked his head toward the house. Make it quick. I don't need the sheriff sniffing around here. Inside, the house was plain, but warm. A fire burned in the stone hearth, and the smell of coffee and bacon lingered. Nora set her mail pouch on the table and pulled off her gloves. Hollis poured coffee into 2 tin cups and handed her one. She wrapped her hands around it, grateful for the heat. The foreman, whose name was Briggs, sat at the table and fixed them both with a hard stare. Start talking. Hollis laid it out. Samuel Cord's murder. The false accusation. The land survey scheme. Nora's alibi. He didn't sugarcoat it, and he didn't ask for pity. Briggs listened in silence. When Hollis finished, the foreman shook his head. You're telling me the territorial governor is behind this? And half the land office. Maybe more. Cord had proof. Now he's dead, and I'm the convenient suspect. And you, Briggs said, turning to Nora, you're a mail carrier who just happened to be carrying stolen documents and decided to lie to the law for a man you barely know. She met his eyes. I decided an innocent man shouldn't hang. The rest just followed. Briggs snorted. You're either brave or stupid. Probably both. He stood and walked to the window, staring out at the snowy prairie. If you're right, and this goes as high as you think, then giving statements tomorrow won't help. They'll twist your words, find holes in your story, and hang you both anyway. Nora's chest tightened. So what do we do? Briggs turned back. You prove who really killed Cord. And you get that survey to someone who can use it before they kill you too. Easier said than done, Hollis muttered. Most things worth doing are. The rest of the afternoon blurred into planning. Hollis had a list of men who'd been close to Cord, people who might know what he'd uncovered before he died. Nora had the survey, but neither of them had the political connections to get it in front of a federal judge. Unless, Nora said slowly, we make it public first. Force the governor's hand. How? There's a newspaper editor in Iron Creek. Marjorie Hale. She's printed stories about land fraud before. If we give her the survey and enough corroboration, she could run it before anyone shuts her down. Hollis frowned. That's a lot of ifs. Better than waiting for a noose. He didn't argue. As the light faded, Briggs offered them the bunkhouse for the night. The other hands were out on the range and wouldn't be back until late. Nora thanked him and followed Hollis across the snowy yard. The bunkhouse was cold, but dry. Hollis lit the stove and threw in kindling until flames caught. Warmth began to spread. Nora sat on one of the narrow bunks, exhaustion catching up with her. Her whole body ached from the ride, and her mind kept circling back to the same thought. She'd just upended her entire life for a stranger. Hollis sat on the bunk across from her, elbows on his knees. You didn't have to do this. I know. So why did you? She considered the question. Because I watched my father lose everything to a crooked land deal when I was 16. Watched him drink himself to death because he couldn't forgive himself for trusting the wrong people. And I swore I'd never stand by while powerful men destroyed honest lives. Hollis's expression shifted, something raw and unguarded flickering across his face. My parents disowned me when I left home to work ranches instead of taking over the family store. Said I was throwing my life away. Haven't spoken to them in 8 years. Nora's throat tightened. She saw it then. The wound they both carried. The weight of parental rejection, of never being enough, of trying to prove something to people who'd stopped listening. We're a matched pair of fools, she said quietly. His mouth curved. Could be worse. How? We could be alone. The word hung in the air between them. Alone. It was the truth she'd been running from for years, The mail routes, the constant movement, the carefully maintained distance from anything that felt like home. She'd told herself it was freedom, but maybe it was just fear. Hollis stood and moved to the window. Snow fell heavier now, blanketing the ranch in silence. We should rest. Tomorrow's going to be rough. She nodded, but neither of them moved to lie down. Instead, Hollis turned back to her. That story you told Dutton. About us meeting at the bridge. What about it? We need details. If the judge asks questions, we can't contradict each other. Right. Details. They spent the next hour building the lie into something solid. What time they'd met. How long it took to clear the debris. What they talked about. Nora found herself slipping into the fiction so easily it almost felt like memory. And maybe that was the danger. Because every invented detail made her more aware of Hollis. The way he listened. The way he challenged her when the timeline didn't make sense. The way he looked at her like she mattered. By the time they finished, the fire had burned low, and the bunkhouse had warmed enough to shed their coats. Nora lay down on the bunk, fully dressed, and pulled a wool blanket over herself. Across the room, Hollis did the same. The darkness settled. Wind rattled the windows. You awake? Hollis's voice, quiet in the dark. Yeah, thank you. For what you did today. Don't thank me yet. We might both hang for it. Still, you didn't have to step in. Most people wouldn't have. Most people aren't carrying stolen surveys. He huffed a low laugh. Fair. Silence stretched. Nora closed her eyes, but sleep felt impossible. Her mind kept replaying the moment in the trading post when their hands collided on the mail pouch. The shock of heat. The way he'd looked at her like he could see straight through her careful defenses. She didn't trust easy. Didn't let people close. But something about Hollis bypassed every wall she'd built. Maybe because he had his own walls. Maybe because they recognized each other. She fell asleep thinking about bridge debris and the way his voice sounded when he said they weren't alone anymore. Morning came gray and cold. Briggs woke them before dawn with coffee and hard biscuits. The ranch hands had returned late and were bunked in the main house, which meant fewer questions about why Nora was there. They rode back to Iron Creek through fresh snow, the horse's breath steaming. Nora's stomach knotted tighter with every mile. The courthouse sat at the edge of town, a 2-story building that doubled as the sheriff's office and jail. A small crowd had gathered outside despite the cold, drawn by the gossip. Nora and Hollis dismounted and climbed the steps together. Eyes tracked them. Whispers followed. Inside, Sheriff Dutton waited with a sour expression. Judge Farrow wants you both upstairs. They followed him to a cramped room that served as the judge's chambers. Judge Farrow was a thin man with wire spectacles and ink-stained fingers, more clerk than magistrate. He gestured to 2 chairs. Sit. Let's hear your version. Nora went first. She recited the story they'd built, keeping her voice steady and her details consistent. The bridge. The debris. The hours spent working together. The impropriety that kept them quiet. Judge Farrow listened without interrupting. When she finished, he turned to Hollis. Your turn. Hollis repeated the same timeline, adding small details that matched hers. The judge made notes, his pen scratching. When Hollis finished, Farrow set down his pen. So you're both willing to swear, under oath? that you were together the night Samuel Cord was killed?" "Yes," Nora said. Hollis nodded. The judge leaned back. "Convenient." Nora's pulse hammered. "It's the truth." Dutton cleared his throat. "Judge, I got a witness who saw Keene near Cord's claim that night." "Who's the witness?" Hollis demanded. Dutton hesitated. "Man named Pike. Works for the land office." Hollis's jaw tightened. "Pike's a liar and a drunk. He'd say anything for a bottle." "Maybe. But his word's as good as yours right now." Nora leaned forward. "Then bring him in. Let him testify. Let us face him." Farrow waved a hand. "Not how this works, miss. I determine credibility, not you." The air in the room went sharp. Nora felt the trap closing. They weren't here for justice. They were here to be processed. Farrow shuffled papers. "I'll take your statements under advisement. But until I'm satisfied, Keene, you're restricted to town limits. And Miss Prescott, I'd advise you to think carefully about the company you keep. Lying to protect a killer won't end well for you." "He's not a killer," she said, her voice hard. The judge met her eyes. "Then I hope you're right. Because if you're wrong, you'll hang beside him." They were dismissed. Nora walked out of the courthouse on shaking legs, fury and fear twisting in her chest. Hollis caught her elbow once they were outside. "That went about as well as expected. He doesn't believe us." "No. But he doesn't have enough to arrest me yet, either. Which means we have time." "Not much." Hollis scanned the street. "We go to Marjorie Hale. Today. Get the survey in her hands and pray she prints it before Dutton finds a reason to lock us both up." They walked toward the newspaper office, a narrow building wedged between a saloon and a dry goods store. The sign above the door read Iron Creek Ledger in faded paint. Inside, the smell of ink and paper overwhelmed everything else. A printing press dominated one corner, and stacks of broadsheets covered every surface. A woman looked up from a cluttered desk, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with ink smudges on her cuffs. Marjorie Hale. Her gaze flicked between them. "Let me guess. You're the mail carrier who lied to the sheriff, and you're the ranch hand accused of murder." "News travels fast," Hollis said. "It's a small town, and I run the only paper. What do you want?" Nora pulled the survey from her mail pouch and set it on the desk. "Proof that the territorial governor has been selling fraudulent land grants. Proof that Samuel Cord was killed for exposing it." Marjorie picked up the survey, her expression sharpening as she scanned the pages. "Where did you get this?" "A dying prospector. He said powerful men would kill for it. He was right." She looked up. "You know what printing this will do to me? To this paper?" "Yes," Nora said. "And we're asking anyway." Marjorie studied them both. Then she set the survey down and leaned back in her chair. "I've been waiting 3 years for someone to bring me something this solid. I'll print it. But you need to understand what happens next. The governor will send men. The sheriff will come for you, and I'll probably lose everything." "We know," Hollis said. "And you're still asking. We don't have a choice." Marjorie smiled, sharp and fierce. "Good. Because neither do I." They left the office an hour later, with Marjorie's promise that the story would run in 2 days. 2 days to gather corroboration, set type, and print enough copies to spread before someone shut her down. 2 days to stay alive. Back on the street, Hollis turned to Nora. We need to be seen together. If we're supposed to be courting, we need to act like it. Her stomach flipped. Act like it. Hold hands. Walk together. Make it believable. She swallowed. All right. He offered his hand. She took it, his palm warm and rough against hers. They walked down the main street, past the saloon, the general store, the boarding house. Eyes followed them everywhere. Nora's face burned, but she kept her head up. This was the role they'd chosen. Might as well play it convincingly. At the edge of town, near a small church, Hollis stopped. His hand tightened on hers. We're being followed. She didn't turn. Who? 2 men. Across the street. They've been shadowing us since we left the newspaper. Her pulse kicked. What do? We give them a show. Before she could ask what he meant, Hollis pulled her close. His hand cupped her jaw, tilting her face up. His eyes searched hers, asking permission. She nodded, barely breathing. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was fierce and desperate, and tasted like coffee and fear. His mouth moved against hers like he was trying to memorize her, and she kissed him back with everything she had. When he pulled away, they were both breathing hard. That convincing enough? He murmured. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Across the street, the 2 men had stopped watching and moved on. Hollis released her slowly, his hand lingering on her jaw. Sorry. Had to sell it. Don't apologize. His eyes darkened. Careful. You keep talking like that, and I might forget this is just an act. Who says it is? The words were out before she could stop them. Hollis stared at her, something raw and unguarded in his expression. Then he smiled, slow and dangerous. You're going to get us both killed. Probably. They walked back toward the livery stable, still holding hands. The kiss had changed something, shifted the air between them into something electric and undeniable. Nora's mind spun. She barely knew this man. Didn't know if she could trust him beyond the desperate alliance they'd formed. But she knew how he kissed. Knew the way he looked at her like she was worth defending. Knew that when he held her hand, she felt less alone than she had in years. Maybe that was enough. That night, they returned to Juniper Ranch. Briggs met them with bad news. Pike's been spreading stories. Says he saw you kill Cord with his own eyes. Hollis's expression went hard. He's lying. I know. But half the town believes him, and the other half doesn't care as long as someone hangs for it. Nora sank into a chair by the fire. What about the newspaper? Will Marjorie have time to print before they come for us? If we're lucky. If not, Briggs shrugged, you better have a backup plan. The backup plan, Hollis said grimly, is we run. Run where? Denver. Get the survey to a federal judge ourselves. That's a week's ride in winter. We'd freeze before we made it halfway. Then we better hope Marjorie prints fast. The next day crawled past like broken glass. Nora helped around the ranch, feeding horses and hauling water. Anything to keep her hands busy and her mind from spiraling. Hollis worked beside her, their movements falling into an easy rhythm. They didn't talk much, didn't need to. But every time their eyes met, the memory of the kiss flared between them. That evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, Marjorie arrived at the ranch on a lathered horse. She swung down, her face flushed with cold and adrenaline. It's done. The story runs tomorrow morning. I printed 500 copies and sent half to the next 3 towns by Ryder. Nora's heart soared. You did it. We did it. Now comes the hard part. What's that? Surviving the consequences. Marjorie didn't stay. She rode back toward town, and Nora watched her go with a sick feeling in her stomach. Tomorrow, everything would change. Hollis stood beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. You ready for this? No. Good. Neither am I. She turned to face him. If this goes wrong, if they come for us, they will. Then I want you to know. She hesitated, searching for the right words. I don't regret it. Any of it. His hand found hers. Neither do I. They stood there as the light faded. 2 people who'd chosen each other in the middle of a storm, holding on while the world sharpened its knives. Morning broke cold and clear. Nora woke to the sound of hoofbeats. A lot of them. She bolted upright in the bunkhouse, just as Hollis threw open the door. They're here. Sheriff Dutton and 6 men rode into the ranch yard, rifles across their saddles. Briggs stepped out of the main house, his face carved from stone. Dutton dismounted. I'm here for Hollis Keene and Nora Prescott. On what charge? Briggs demanded. Obstruction of justice. Conspiracy. And now, we got proof Keene killed Cord. Pike signed a statement. Hollis moved to stand beside Briggs. Pike's a liar, and you know it. Maybe. But a judge will sort that out. Now step aside before this gets ugly. Nora joined them, her heart hammering. Did you read the newspaper this morning, Sheriff? Dutton's face darkened. I read it. Pack of lies and slander. Federal land surveys don't lie. Neither do forged signatures. The governor will have Marjorie Hale shut down by noon. And you 2 will be in a cell by then. Hollis stepped forward. You want me? Fine. But she had nothing to do with Cord's murder. She's an accomplice. That's enough. Nora's blood ran cold. They weren't going to get a trial. They were going to disappear into a cell and hang quietly before the survey story spread any further. Hollis glanced at her, and she saw the decision forming in his eyes. No, she whispered. He turned back to Dutton. I'll come. But let her go. Not how this works, Keene. Then, we got a problem. Hollis moved fast, slamming into Dutton and knocking him off balance. The other men shouted and reached for their weapons. Run! Hollis yelled. Nora didn't think. She ran for the horses, Briggs covering her with his own body. Gunfire cracked the air. She grabbed the sorrel mare's reins and vaulted into the saddle. Hollis fought his way free of the deputies and sprinted for his horse. He swung up just as a bullet tore through his coat sleeve. They rode hard, snow flying, the ranch disappearing behind them. Nora's lungs burned. Her mind screamed. This was it. They were outlaws now. Fugitives. There was no going back. Hollis pulled alongside her, his face set and fierce. You all right? She nodded, breathless. They rode for hours, cutting across open prairie, following creek beds and ridgelines. The cold bit through their clothes. But they didn't stop. Finally, as the sun climbed toward noon, Hollis led them into a thick stand of pines. They dismounted, gasping, and let the horses rest. Nora's hands shook. We just assaulted a sheriff. He was going to hang us. Now he'll hang us for sure. Hollis grabbed her shoulders. Look at me. We're alive. That's what matters. For how long? As long as we keep moving. The story's out there now. It's spreading. Once it reaches Denver, the federal marshals will have to investigate. And in the meantime, we survive. She wanted to argue, wanted to scream, but his hands were warm on her shoulders, and his eyes were steady, and she realized, with a jolt, that she believed him. They made camp in the pines, risking a small fire for warmth. Hollis checked his coat sleeve where the bullet had grazed him. Just a scratch. Nora tore a strip from her petticoat and wrapped it anyway. You're bleeding. I've had worse. That's not comforting. Wasn't trying to be. She tied off the bandage and sat back. What now? Now we wait. Give the story time to spread. Marjorie said she sent copies to 3 towns. If even one of them reprints it, the pressure on the governor will mount. And if they don't, then we ride for Denver and hand-deliver the survey ourselves. A week in winter. We'll never make it. Hollis met her eyes. You got a better plan? She didn't. They spent 3 days in the forest, moving camp each night, staying ahead of the search parties. Nora learned to sleep with one eye open. Learned to move silently through snow. Learned that fear could sharpen you into something harder and more capable than you'd ever imagine. And she learned Hollis. The way he moved, the way he thought, the way he watched her back like it mattered as much as his own. On the 4th morning, a rider found them. Nora's hand flew to the knife at her belt, but Hollis raised a hand. Wait. The rider was young, maybe 17, wearing a mail carrier's satchel. Miss Prescott? Hollis keened. Nora stepped forward, wary. Who's asking? Marjorie Hale sent me. The story's spreading. 3 newspapers have reprinted it. Federal marshals are asking questions. And Judge Farrow just issued a warrant for Sheriff Dutton's arrest. Nora's knees nearly gave out. What? Turns out, Pike recanted his statement. Said Dutton paid him to lie. The whole thing's falling apart. Hollis exhaled hard. What about the governor? Under investigation. They found more surveys, more fraudulent sales. It's over. The writer handed Nora a folded paper. Marjorie said to give you this. She unfolded it. A short note in Marjorie's sharp handwriting. You're cleared. Come home. Nora looked at Hollis. We're free. He didn't smile. Not yet. Not until we see it with our own eyes. They rode back to Iron Creek slowly. Every mile wound tight with tension. But when they crested the hill overlooking town, they saw it. A crowd gathered in the courthouse square, reading broadsheets, talking in animated clusters. Marjorie stood on the courthouse steps, selling papers as fast as she could print them. They dismounted at the edge of the square. Heads turned. Whispers spread. Then someone clapped. Then another. And then the whole crowd was applauding. Nora's throat closed. She looked at Hollis, who looked just as stunned. Marjorie fought her way through the crowd, her face flushed with triumph. You did it. The governor's suspended. Dutton's in jail. And Pike confessed to everything, including the real killer, a land office clerk named Stiles, who was covering up the fraud. Hollis shook his head. It's really over. Almost. You still have to testify when the federal marshals arrive. But yes, it's over. Nora felt lightheaded. 4 days ago, they'd been fugitives. Now, they were heroes. Judge Farrow appeared, looking sheepish. Miss Prescott. Mr. Keene, I owe you both an apology. And an official exoneration. Hollis just stared at him. Farrow cleared his throat. The court recognizes that you were falsely accused, and that your actions, while unorthodox, were instrumental in uncovering a significant criminal conspiracy. You're free to go. Nora wanted to laugh, wanted to cry. Instead, she just nodded. The crowd parted as they walked toward the boarding house. Inside, Nora sank onto a bench, her whole body trembling with relief. Hollis sat beside her. You all right? I don't know. Are you? He laughed, low and rough. No idea. They sat in silence, shoulders touching, as the adrenaline drained away and left exhaustion in its wake. Finally, Hollis turned to her. So, what now? Nora met his eyes. I don't know. I've been running for so long, I'm not sure I know how to stop. Maybe. He said slowly. You don't have to stop. Just change direction. What do you mean? Stay. Here. In Iron Creek. With me. Her heart kicked. Hollis, I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. But I also know I don't want to let you go. She searched his face. What are you asking? I'm asking if you'd consider staying. Building something. Together. The word hung between them. Together. Nora thought about her father, about the years of running, about the walls she'd built to keep herself safe and separate. And then she thought about Hollis, about the way he'd fought for her, believed her, kissed her like she was worth choosing. I don't have anything to offer, she said quietly. No ranch, no savings, just a mail route and a stubborn streak. Hollis smiled. Good thing I like stubborn. I'm serious. So am I. I don't care what you have or don't have. I care that you're here. Her throat tightened. What if I'm terrible at staying? Then we'll figure it out. Together. There it was again. That word. Together. She took a breath. All right. All right? I'll stay. With you. If you'll have me. He pulled her close, his arms solid and warm. I'll have you. The next weeks passed in a blur of testimony, legal proceedings, and slow rebuilding. The territorial governor resigned. Sheriff Dutton was tried and convicted. The land fraud scheme unraveled completely, and dozens of families received restitution for stolen claims. Nora kept her mail route, but she moved her base to Iron Creek. Hollis stayed on at Juniper Ranch, but he spent every evening in town, walking Nora home from the post office. Their fake courtship became a real one. Slow and steady, and built on trust, earned through fire. In the spring, Hollis asked her to marry him, not with a ring, because he didn't have one. Just with a quiet question on the porch of the boarding house as the sun set. She said yes. They married in the small church where he'd kissed her that first time. Marjorie stood as witness. Briggs gave Nora away. The whole town turned out, which still felt strange given that half of them had wanted them hanged 6 months earlier. But people forgave fast on the frontier. And they loved a good redemption story. After the ceremony, they rode out to Juniper Ranch. Briggs had offered them a small cabin on the property, and Hollis had spent weeks fixing it up. It wasn't much. Just 2 rooms, a stone hearth, and a view of the prairie that stretched forever. But it was theirs. Nora stood in the doorway that first evening, watching the sun sink below the horizon, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Hollis came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Happy? Yes. Good. Because I plan on keeping you that way. She leaned back against him. You know I'm still going to ride the mail routes, right? I'm not cut out to be a ranch wife. I know. I don't want a ranch wife. I want you. She turned in his arms. Even if I'm terrible at staying put, especially then. Keeps things interesting. She kissed him, slow and deep, and felt the last of her walls come down. They'd both spent years running from wounds they couldn't heal alone. But together, they'd found something better than forgiveness. They'd found home. The months that followed were simple and hard in the way frontier life always was. Nora rode her routes, carrying mail across the territory, bringing news and connection to isolated homesteads. Hollis worked the ranch, breaking horses and mending fences and building corrals. But every evening, they came back to the cabin. To each other, they learned each other's rhythms, learned how to fight fair and make up better, learned that love on the frontier wasn't about grand gestures. It was about showing up, about choosing each other when it would be easier to walk away. One evening, nearly a year after the trial, Nora came home to find Hollis at the table, a letter in his hands. His face was pale. She set down her satchel. What is it? Letter from my parents. Her heart clenched. After all this time? He nodded. They read about the trial, about what we did. And he swallowed hard, they want to know if I'd be willing to visit. Nora crossed to him and took his hand. What do you want? I don't know. Part of me wants to throw it in the fire. But another part, he looked up at her. Another part thinks maybe it's time to stop running. She squeezed his hand. Then we'll go. Together. You don't have to. Yes, I do. That's what this is. We face things together. His eyes softened. What did I do to deserve you? You defended a stranger in a trading post. And you kissed me, like you meant it. He smiled, slow and warm. I did mean it. I know. They made the journey east that autumn, riding together through changing leaves and cooling air. Nora watched Hollis grow quieter the closer they got to his hometown, and she held his hand through every mile of doubt. When they arrived, his parents stood on the porch of a modest house, older and grayer than Hollis remembered. The reunion was awkward, tense, full of words that didn't quite land. But Hollis's father shook his hand. His mother hugged him, carefully, like she was afraid he'd disappear. And when they left 3 days later, something in Hollis's face had eased. The wound hadn't vanished, but it had started to heal. On the ride home, he pulled Nora close. Thank you. For what? For reminding me that some things are worth fighting for. Even the hard ones. Especially the hard ones. They rode back to Iron Creek as the first snow began to fall, and Nora realized she wasn't afraid anymore. Not of staying. Not of being known. Because she'd found the one thing she'd been running from her whole life. She'd found someone who saw her clearly and chose her anyway. And that was enough. The cabin welcomed them back with warmth and firelight. Nora made coffee while Hollis stoked the stove, and they settled into the evening routine they'd built together. Outside, snow blanketed the prairie in silence. Inside, they talked about small things. The mail route. The new foal at the ranch. Plans for spring. And when the conversation faded into comfortable quiet, Hollis pulled her close on the narrow bench and kissed her temple. I love you. 3 words he'd never said before. Nora's throat tightened. I love you too. Think we'll ever stop being surprised by that? I hope not. He smiled against her hair. Good. Because I plan on surprising you for the rest of our lives. Promise? These are Nord are supposed to betray what see us. Celeste the rounder. Like you mentioned in the story, where they're a Notre-Dame. Their muff place were lost and lost white. Promise? Cone like dranding a tensikoudener. Promise? Cos climb pek most bows. Promise. They sat there, as the fire burned low, and the snow piled higher. 2 people who'd fought their way through lies and danger and fear to find something true. The frontier was hard. Life was uncertain. Tomorrow would bring new struggles. But tonight, they had each other. And that was everything.